Hello. This weekend, yesterday, I went to an OTS championship in Munich and I got second place with my Traptrix deck and qualified for the European Championship, and I wanted to show my deck real quick. The goal of the deck was to play a pure Traptrix build and use the fact that it can play with shifters. So for the Traptrix monsters, I firstly played 3 Memello, 3 Mantis, 3 Pudica, which I think really standard. Those are just your good normal summons. Especially Mantis and Memello I wouldn't cut down. Pudica I often side one out going second for more non-engine. 2 Dionea because you always want to have one in your deck for your going first combo. 2 Arachnocampa and 1 Vesticulo. Arachno 1 for the standard combo with Mantis, and it's also really nice protecting your back row. Vesticulo is really nice for lines where you don't want to lock yourself into insects and plants, or if you just need another extender in addition to Arachnocampa. Then I also play one of the field spells to search with Pudica. The reason I played the second Arachnocampa is because I wanted a bit more engine since Prosperity was hit to 1, and I tried experimenting around with what to play. I tried playing 2 Gardens, but Garden is really good if you have the 2 normal summons in hand with it, but Arachnocampa is just always good to draw, so I decided to play 2 Arachnocampas because it can extend. You can just, if you don't need it, keep in hand to protect your back row, but it always does something, and Garden can just brick a lot, especially if you have 2 Gardens or multiple Pudicas. It's just not that good to draw multiples in, even though the situations where Garden is good, it's a lot better, but there are so many situations where the second Garden is just really a brick, and I would recommend playing 2 Arachnocampas. Maybe you could also play another extender, like for example Rika Princess or something like that. Then for the trap holes, 3 Hodoteas, which I think is pretty standard because you just need something to trigger Sarah on your first, and it's really nice to draw this and don't have to search this. 2 Gravediggers, so if you go first and you draw one, you still have a second one in the deck to negate Nibiru with Rafflesia. So the probability of drawing both of them is way less than just drawing the one if you play one. Then 1 Floodgate, this I think is the most versatile one. This is always the one I search out turn 1 if I don't know what my enemy is playing. Banishing Trap Hole, it's a bit more situational, and I also sided it out depending on the matchup a lot, but it's really nice against the deck where you can hit a lot of good cards and just banish them face down and get rid of them permanently. And Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare because the negate is just very useful to play around more complicated board states. I most often sided out one of these 2 and one of the Gravediggers if I was going second, again for just to play more engine. Also the second Arachnocampa also sided out very often. Then the best card in the deck, Paralytic Seed. Still I think this is a must play. I also think 3 is the correct ratio, even though you sometimes draw multiples of the hands where you have this as an additional extender are just so good. The fact that it is not just something that enables your Sarah, but something you have as an additional like option to Sarah, so you can make a early Rafflesia, be safe of hand traps, or if your opponent has a hand trap, they have to choose, okay, do I hand trap the Paralytic Seed, do I use the hand trap on Sarah? That makes it really good. Then 1 off spells, 1 Prosperity for the consistency, 1 call by, just because hand traps can be really annoying, and it's also really nice against some decks to hit their monsters. Then for the hand trap lineup, something for everything like Imperm, Ash Blossom and Nip. And then because of how the meta is shaped at the moment with stuff like Yubel and Fiendsmith and Examiner and Fire King and stuff, I decided to play 3 Dimension Shifter in the main. Also play 3 Retaliating Sea in the side deck. That's also the reason because I really like to main these other 3 hand traps, because they all work under Shifter. So you always have your hand traps live. The only problem is drawing multiples of them isn't as good, with exception of Imperm, but it's also the best hand trap with Traptrix because it's a normal trap. Then for the extra deck, 3 Sarah, wouldn't go any less. Sometimes if I go for 6 with Pot of Prosperity I banish one, but it comes up very often that you need 3. 1 Oedipus, just to kill your opponent, clear the board. The 1000 attack boost is just very strong. Raphtasia, strong endboard piece. Pingiculo, just a really good extender in the extra deck, and also her on-field effect on the opponent's turn can fuck up many decks really hard if you take out something out of their graveyard. For example, against decks like Tearlaments, you can attach the card they want to fusion summon with, and they can't fusion summon after that. Alomeris, really nice alone for the fact alone that you can summon it, get detach 2, get 1 back, and get an additional body on field to go for game, or trigger you, for example, Traptrix Memedio multiple times per turn and get rid of their back row. Time Thief Redoer, also really nice endboard piece because you can make it reliably with a trap, and it's just a non-destroying, non-targeting removal. Baguska for just when you have to stall out some turns, Abyss Trailer against graveyard decks, and the Gaga Cowboy for time. Then Typhon, really good. Glad it got a bit cheaper with the Megatins and is finally affordable. Really nice because the stack has problems playing into boards, and if your pushes get stopped, at least you can make a Typhon on your last monster and maybe finish clearing the board. Also Little Nice, really good clearing boards. Can also be a nice end board piece if you're under shifter, because under shifter Raphtasia doesn't work, and maybe you can't make a Time Thief because you only end on 2 monsters and not a trap ender monster. Then SP can be a really good end board piece to disrupt your opponent. Access Code Talker is mostly here for if you need to further break boards and still have bodies and can link up from Oedipus, because you can negate some cards, pop 1 with Oedipus, then rank up into this and destroy even more cards. 1 if you only have Oedipus and Sarah in graveyard, if you have Little Knight, 1 more, and you could even have Almirage, which the reason of this is because you, especially in the side deck, play some hand traps you can normal summon, and if you have a hand where you can normal summon a hand trap and Paralytic Seed but no Traptrix monster, you can summon this, summon your Paralytic Seed, get the second one, go into this rank 4, and from there on you can go into a somewhat full Traptrix combo, especially if you have drawn a trap. So that's just for the normally unplayable hands. It's really good. Even better if you don't play the shifter variant, which I usually do. But because I was expecting some meta decks, I thought this would be the version with the highest win chance, so I want to play it. For the side deck, 3 Retaliating Sea, because there in the meta decks there are really many opportunities to activate this, like the Azamina cards which fusion summon. This is just, as long as it's on the field, it's a shifter, and if it gets off of the field you can search your Mantis or your Arachnokampa, depending on what you need, which can be really nice, but I have to be honest, didn't draw it this tournament. Then, for the matchups, where you need to side out, for example, your shifter, Baylor and Ghost Ogre, especially for Centurion. I also sometimes, when I side it really heavily, for example, I played a round against Snake Eyes Fire King, that is usually a matchup where I side in 6 more hand traps for 6 engine cards, and then Baylor and Retaliating Sea were put in, and I try to use the Baylor, also I will, my opponent activates something I want to Vader and I have Vader and Shifter, I will activate Shifter, then chain Vader, which you then still can, as long as Shifter hasn't resolved. It's not optimal, but sometimes you just need the more hand traps, and I really thought about the side deck a lot, and I think it's quite a good choice for the current meta. Then for going first, 3 Judgments, just to protect your back row evenly, and stuff like that can fuck you really up. So I think good card, or you can also just stop some shit when like normal summons, which is really nice. So your opponent can't even stop playing. For example, didn't play against it, but against Temper you could stop their normal summon, or you can stop their Chandra and stop them from even getting off the ground. if you don't have to negate a board breaker, of course. Also for going first, an anti-spell fragrance, really nice because you do not really play space, and the two of them you play you can just activate before you activate the anti-spell, and it's so good against so many decks. Then last card, do Dimension the Barriers. I was really hesitant putting this in because, to be honest, this deck doesn't need going first cards more than it already has, but I needed more good siding cards for Tempai because against Tempai I already side out Nibiru and Veiler, and Nibiru and Shifter. So I wanted 6 good cards to side in against Tempai, and these were my choice because these 4 I would have played anyways. And then I was thinking of putting into Veilers, but they just don't do enough against Tempai in my opinion, so I decided for 2-dimensional barriers. Didn't play against it, but I think the theory behind it is rather solid. I think it's a good choice. Yeah, that was my deck. Then for my matchups, first round I went against Stun, went really well. Stun isn't really that great against Traptrix because you're immune to space. With your Memelio you can summon it multiple times if you get it back with your 1 rank 4 and summon it off of Sarah again and again, or summon it back with the field spell. I went 2-0, went really nice. Second round was against Centurion. I went 2-1. My side deck with the Veiler and Ghost Ogre was very helpful. Veilering the normal summon can just sometimes be enough. I also think really good choice. He got me 1 game. He went first or second game. Set up 2 of the Blazer Dragons. I couldn't play through this. If your normal summon gets negated, you have just a really rough time. Next round, Snake Eyes Fire King won 2-0. First round it was a bit grindy back and forth. He didn't really have a good starter, I think, going first. He made a witch, he summoned witch, I impermed it and he couldn't play much more. And in the second game I activated Shifter. He had witches in hand which he couldn't activate, and I could control the game really easily. Then next game was against Jubel. I got completely obliterated. Jubel is just very strong. My opponent, I think, went first both games. Second game I could shift them, but I also only drew hand traps and couldn't really get into my engine, so the shifter didn't do enough and he just completely destroyed me. He summoned Spirit of Jubel 2 times in both games, and it's just so hard to keep up with that card, so I lost. Next game was against Dragonlink, again 2-0. I had a rather good time clearing his board because in the first game the only thing he ended on was the new Black Eyes Metal Dragon, and after he used his negate I could get rid of it with, I'm not sure which I used. I think it was a time for free doer because it's not safe from that. And the second round I also won. But I think there I could hand trap him a bit more and he didn't really get that much of a board. And the last game, I hope I didn't miss one. No, it seems right, yeah. 6th game was against Purdy. Was a 2-1, but the first win was because of a deck check and my opponent was missing a card in his deck, so he got a game loss. Then the second game he won, and the third game I literally won with the last couple of seconds on the clock, going into battle phase and attacking him and having like 200, 300 life more than him. Was really close, but really intense. And I got second place with it. Really happy, qualified for the European Championship, and yeah, really happy about how the deck functioned. Happy with my choices, like for example playing the 2 Arachnokampa. Very happy with the extra deck. To be honest, the Eye Mirage wasn't really necessary in this version of the deck because I don't play as much of the like normal summonable hand traps, which I usually do because I usually don't play Shifter and Retaliating Sea, but still, nice card. I bought the Little Knight on that day. That thing just does so much heavy lifting. I would very much recommend this for anyone who can afford it now. That's just €10. But yeah, I really like the deck. very happy with how it performed.